for listening. Every week we get such good questions, such good comments, such good follow up. And I really want to thank the listeners for paying close attention to the topics that we bring. I try to bring matters that I think might be helpful or of interest to the community. And every week, yeah, it never fails that I'm just impressed with the positive feedback that we get and the follow up that we get from the topics that are presented every week on this show. As you know, this show is sponsored by Columbia Savings and Loan Association. So I always like to shout out to Columbia Savings and Loan Association and remind the listening audience to get in touch with Columbia if you would like to apply for a home mortgage. Don't hesitate to give the bank a call. We have a brand new loan officer on board who can schedule an appointment with you and sit down and talk about possible options for you in terms of home ownership. So the phone number at Columbia is 414-374-0486. That is 414-374-0486. Please, please do not hesitate to give Columbia Savings and Loan Association a call if you may be interested in applying for a home mortgage. Now, even if you're not ready right at this time to apply for that mortgage, give the bank a call to meet with the loan officer. That way you can get prepared to position yourself for home ownership. But just give us a call and schedule an appointment and come in and sit down and talk about what you might need in order to achieve that very, very important goal. So, last week I had on the show my two paralegals, Angelina and Kelly, who are wonderful and very, very knowledgeable in the realm of estate planning. They talked about trusts and they talked in a fair amount of detail about trusts. And that's a topic that is, it always brings very interesting questions, as we did have last week. And I hope that the information was helpful. We ended up getting follow up calls for appointments after that show last week. So, again, I appreciate everyone that's listening. I do want to give a phone number again to follow up if you have estate planning needs, whether it's a trust, whether it's a will, whether it's what I'm going to talk about today, which will be power of attorney. I'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to give the number to contact to reach out to the paralegals to schedule an appointment with them or with me. The number is 414-247-9570. That is the number to the Ples Law Firm. One of the paralegals will answer the call, but they'll take a message for me if I'm the one you need to talk to, or they will try to schedule something with you directly. Again, that number is 414-247-9570 to call if you would like to consult about an estate plan. So thank you so much for all of that. So one more thing that is an important call to action. That's what I'm going to call it. I almost said announcement, but no, this is more than an announcement. This is a call to action that I would like to share with you this morning. I had an opportunity to sit down and meet with Ms. Cassandra Brooks. Cassandra Brooks is the daughter of Beachy O. Brooks. And this is very, you know what? I'm gonna read to you from the flyer so I don't misstate anything. But the Halyard Park Association, now I think the audience is probably familiar with Halyard Park, and the connection with Columbia obviously is Mr. and Mrs. Halyard, who started this bank that we just celebrated the centennial a couple of weeks ago. So the Halyards are the founders of Columbia Savings and Loan Association. And so there is an area in town known as Halyard Park, and the Halyard Park Association Foundation is working on having a life-size bronze statue of Beachy O. Brooks placed on a custom base along with two bronze plaques. One plaque stating the history of Halyard Park subdivision and of Beachy O. Brooks as the developer and builder and the second plaque listing the major donors. The HPAF foresees this subdivision in the Gaines Triangle on North 6th and West Lloyd Streets in Milwaukee, spotlighted at night to highlight the statue. It's going to cost approximately $125,000 to do the project, but it will serve to preserve the history of the Halyard Park subdivision and the legacy of Beachy O. Brooks, who was the developer and builder of this wonderful subdivision of Milwaukee. So, to complete this project, the Halyard Park Association Foundation is relying on the generous support of individuals, organizations, and businesses. And they would be most grateful if you would consider providing a financial donation or a donation of services to the organization. Your support is critical to the completion of the project, and they will gladly keep you updated regarding progress if you wish to have those updates. So, the Halyard Park Association Foundation is a nonprofit organization and has its 501c3 status. So, I wanted to share that information and to let the audience know that if you would like to contribute to the building of this statue to honor Mr. Beachy O. Brooks, please mail your donations to the Halyard Park Association Foundation, which is located at 2017 North Dr. William Finlayson Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53212-3161. And can I just say that it was Cassandra Brooks that told me yesterday, I don't know where I've been, that I did not realize that there had been a street named after Dr. Finlayson. Did you guys know that? I don't know if you guys knew that, but I don't know. I didn't realize that that had occurred. So that's another milestone to be proud of. But anyway, so mail your donations to the Halyard Park Association Foundation, 2017 North Dr. William Finlayson Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53212-3161. If you'd like to call, the phone number is 414-916-2048. That is 414-916-2048. Or you can email at HPAF, that's Halyard Park Association Foundation, 1976 at AOL.com, HPAF 1976 at AOL.com. Please show your support for the Beachy O. Brooks statue project. Thank you so much for listening to that. All right, on to business. Continuing the journey on the discussion of estate planning, we take a topic every time and try to go a little more in depth with that particular topic. Last week it was trusts, particularly revocable trusts. We have talked about wills, and today I'm going to talk about power of attorney. This is something that I've talked about before, but I kind of gauged this based on the questions that come in after the show. So there seems to be or have been quite a bit of interest piqued with respect to the topic of power of attorney. So it will not be legal advice that I'm offering today, only information. So, and I'm giving out all these phone numbers, but I am going to say that if there is anyone that would like to call in and add to the discussion, please feel free to do so. The number here at the station is 414-444-5250. That is 414-444-5250. We are going to talk about power of attorney today. So, what is power of attorney? A power of attorney is a legal document that is provided pursuant to statute, and Wisconsin is one of 26 states to have adopted the Uniform POA, that's for Power of Attorney, POA Act and codified it in Chapter 244 of the Wisconsin statutes. So basically, that chapter of the statutes describes what is meant by the term power of attorney. A power of attorney is a document that grants authority to someone else to manage your affairs. That's the broad kind of general description of what that means. So I mentioned this a little bit last week and wanted to circle back and just explore the topic a little bit more because I said, a power of attorney is really a big deal. People focus a lot on wills and they say, oh, I want my will to say this, I want my will to say that, or even trust documents. But I think wills was the example that I gave last week. And it is important what you put in your will, who gets what after you're no longer here. But I'm making the point that I think a power of attorney in some ways is an even more important document because it governs what happens to you and your finances, or you and your property, or you and your health, right? While you're still here. So in my mind, that's more important. What happens to me me and my stuff while I'm here, is in my mind even more important than what may happen after I'm gone. That's important too, but I care about while I'm here. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So, what is a power of attorney? You hear it referred to as an attorney in fact or an agent, right? So, all that means is that's the person that you nominate or the person that you choose to be your power of attorney if, in fact, you're not able to make decisions for yourself. There are multiple different types of powers of attorney. So the first one that I'd like to talk about is the limited power of attorney. That is when you need someone to do things for a limited purpose. Okay. So you specify a date when it will commence, you specify a date when it will end. And where I've seen this type of limited power of attorney over the years in my practice has been related to real estate transactions, especially closings. Let's say if someone is traveling out of the country or something to that effect, and there's a closing that needs to take place, it is possible to give limited power of attorney to another person to sign any important legal documents on your behalf. So generally, those powers of attorney are short-lived, right? By definition, they're limited. And once that deed is done that they are authorized for, then those power of attorneys are no longer in effect. So that's obviously language that gets included right in the document itself so that it's clear that it's limited for a limited purpose or a limited period of time. The next power of attorney type that I'd like to talk a little bit about this morning is the general power of attorney. Now, a general power of attorney is more comprehensive than limited. It essentially assigns all of your powers and rights to someone else. And it can be used when people don't have the time, the skills, or maybe even the desire to handle some of their financial matters. What's interesting about a general power of attorney, though, is that you can choose to revoke it. Otherwise, it does remain in effect until you die or if you become incapacitated. So, what are some of the uses for a general power of attorney? Collecting debts, applying for government benefits, managing financial or business matters, buying or selling or making investments on your own behalf. Those are typical matters that might be addressed with a general power of attorney. Then there is the durable power of attorney. What's significant about the durable power of attorney is that it lasts even if the assigner, that means the person who created it, that's you if it's your power of attorney. The durable lasts even if the assigner becomes incapacitated. So this is the form that you use When your goal is to give an agent authority to act when you can no longer act yourself. So some consider this to be the most powerful type of power of attorney document, durable. So I guess it says that really in the name. But even if you become incapacitated, a durable power of attorney is prepared in such a way that it continues to be in effect. Then there is a power of attorney that is referred to as a springing power of attorney. Now, this type is interesting because it becomes effective at some time in the future. Often, these types of powers of attorney are drafted such that they come into effect when a person becomes incapacitated. And the challenge with that, in my experience, is that it can be tricky to determine when a person has become incapacitated. I see a call holding right now. Is that someone that's trying to get through? Okay, I'll keep going because I just saw it ring back a couple times. So I wanted to just address it. Okay, so the reason that I say that a springing power of attorney can be something that's tricky is if if you have a senior whose cognitive abilities may be declining, whether it be due to something like Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm learning um, that those types of conditions, they can have their good days and they can have their bad days. That's I think the way that I want to say it. You can have someone whose cognitive abilities seem very compromised um, one day, and you may come back the next day or the following week, and that person is with it, and they know exactly what's going on and can hold conversation with you that is fluid and sharp and right to the point. Dementia is typically gradual, um, based on my understanding. And let's say with one of the springing power of attorneys, often the language goes like this: if I become incapacitated, then this power of attorney comes into effect, right? Well, how do you determine then when a person becomes incapacitated? Well, it'll often say when my medical doctor examines me, right, and puts something in writing saying that I am now incapacitated. Or maybe it's your doctor and your psychotherapist. Like maybe the two have to agree, depending upon what language you put in there. So there's something that has to happen. A medical professional needs to examine you and they need to say in writing that you are incapacitated. But the challenge with this, I'm okay one day and not the next, is they might see you on that day where you're doing just fine. And maybe they can't say that you're incapacitated. So I'm going to come back after the break and talk about this in a little more detail because these are important points that I'd like to make. But thank you again for listening. Money Talks with Attorney Coral. We're talking about powers of attorneys today, and we will be back after the break. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. Thank you for listening. We're talking about power of attorneys today, the different various types of powers of attorney. And this is informational, it is not legal advice, but I would like to say that if you have anything to add to the discussion, you can reach us at 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250 if you'd like to add something to the discussion, any experiences that you may have had that you're willing to share related to the topic at hand today. So before we went to break, I was talking about springing power of attorney as a document that comes into effect when you become incapacitated. So something that comes into effect at a future date and time. And I was discussing that dementia, for instance, is typically gradual. Um, there can be a sharp decline, but more often than not, there are good days and there are bad days. So if your senior that you have power of attorney over, you may notice that they're struggling with some things, and you love them and you care about them, and you want to make sure that you can help and protect what they've worked hard all their life for. And you know that it's time to get some intervention to make that power of attorney come into effect. And maybe you see their behavior on a day-to-day basis, and you can tell right away that things are not as they should be and that they do need this help. Sometimes people become a little resistant. No one likes to um, admit that maybe they can't handle their own finances or real estate or bank accounts or anything like that. That it can be difficult to come to terms that, hey, now it's time for you to relinquish this authority and let's say if it's a parent, let your son or daughter, whomever you nominated, to actually step up and take over. So that son or daughter may make an appointment with your medical professional, and then you bring them in front of that medical professional that day, and they're fine. They may be quicker than you that day. That and so then the doctor will say, well, I can't find that this person is incapacitated. I asked them basic questions. They know what time it is, what day of the week it is, how they got here, where they live, who's president. We don't want to talk about that though, so I won't even go there today. But um whatever basic questions that they might ask, just to try to get a feel for what's going on with this individual. So it can become a challenge. I guess it's just, I'm just pointing this out, that I used to think that the springing power of attorney is the way to go, and you tell people, well, yeah, you sign that and then you're still in charge until you're no longer able to be in charge. But the challenge is determining from a medical standpoint, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, because that's the standard that doctors have to adhere to when they sign their name to something, because it has to be that in order to stand up in court. A reasonable degree of medical certainty is what they must have before they can put something in writing and say you are incapacitated. You may show up on your best day and not appear incapacitated, but then what? When the next day, let's say they slip again, and the I don't mean physically slip, I mean, from a mental standpoint, the dementia that is typically gradual, and then the next day maybe they don't have the sharpness that they need for self-protection. And one thing that I've seen a lot of that just disgusts me is all of the predatory phone calls that seniors get, that people will focus in on them and just ring that phone off the hook with one scam after the next, to try to catch them at a point in time where they may be vulnerable. And that's why this sort of thing is important, because if they catch them on one of those days where they're vulnerable and they fall prey to some sort of a scammer, um, entire life savings can be lost. And there's just, I can't think of too many things sadder than that. So there are some attorneys that advise against springing power of attorney documents for the very reasons that I'm discussing this morning. I'm not advising one way or the other because this is not legal advice. This is just informational. But I will say that if nothing more, it forces the conversation up front, whether you trust the person that you're giving power of attorney to or not. Is this the right person to be my agent? If you have any hesitation um, about having that person be your agent, face that up front. Don't have a hesitation about it. Put them down anyway and hope that they get better, before you need it. That's not the way to go about it. Is what I'm suggesting. So just be mindful of that if you're meeting with an attorney for these types of documents. Explore the different options for power of attorney and go from there. So it looks like we have a caller holding Jermaine. Thank you. Hello there, caller. Please go ahead.
Hi, Coral. It's Angelina and Kelly.
Well, two of my most wonderful favorite people. Hi, you guys. Thanks for calling in.
Oh, sure. So we had something to add to the springing power of attorney,
Oh, please do, by all means.
and that we found that if people do the springing power of attorney, sometimes they also need a guardianship with that.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep. And we
explain that.
found that in
Explain
a
that a
couple
little bit
cases.
more, Kelly. Why would they
Sure.
need a? Yeah, please tell everyone.
Sure. So they, the immediate power of attorney, again, like you said, is you use it while after you sign it. So you sign it, something happens to you, and then whoever you named as your agent is able to pay your bills and be your agent. However, if you do the springing and you aren't declared incompetent, and they don't activate that power of attorney, then you have to go for a guardianship. And then you don't have anybody named. So if you don't have children, then actually the court could name, a guardian for you.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point to make. See why I enjoy working with these two ladies, Milwaukee. It's so good to have knowledgeable people, and you guys have had a lot of different experiences. So you're talking about things you've probably actually even seen. And so it's not just theory for you. You're talking about some reality, and
Yeah.
that guardianship experience. That at that juncture, that's not a pleasant thing to have to deal with. There's wild cards there because then you don't have control.
You don't have control, and you don't have a loved one maybe to make, your financial decisions for you. If there's
Right.
no one, to step up, or if you don't have anybody, then the court's going to appoint someone. That, we've seen that happen quite a few times with those springing powers of attorney.
Okay. So that's important to know. So I can kind of understand why there are some attorneys that advise against that for these
Right.
reasons. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. Thanks for calling with that. Was there any other comments that you wanted to share?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay, Carl.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. See you both. Thanks. All right, that's Angelina and Kelly. They were on the show last week, and I'm so glad that you're listening in this morning. And these two are my support with what we're doing, and I so appreciate them calling in and adding to the discussion. Um, the phone looks like it's just lighting up, Jermaine. I don't know. Are these calls here that want to come through? Caller, please go ahead. Thanks for waiting.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry. I walked in on your show before I heard your name. I know you're our attorney. So can I address your property? What is your attorney name again?
Coral Ples.
Well, good morning, Miss Attorney Cora Press, and thank you for being there this morning. And the question, first of all, good morning to Jermaine.
Hey, how do you do, sir?
I'm doing okay, sir. Mr. Devo, Double Legend, he's still in the house.
No, Debo's not here, but Carvey's here.
Hey, Carby.
Oh,
Hey, how you doing, young man? My young genius.
Doing great, man. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah,
Hey, likewise,
Devo's in
likewise.
the house. He's just not in the studio. He's just not in the room, but he's in the house.
Okay, well, still good morning to Mr. Devo, the double legend.
There you go.
Attorney, I have a question. If, for example, if your parents, you're talking about powers of attorney and things like that.
Yes.
If, if your father, for instance, my father had like 6 kids, and I was the oldest, and when he passed few years ago, um, he didn't necessarily let us know about who he wanted to be his, spokesperson or anything like that. The only thing I know, if I'm making any kind of sense, is, well, my question is, let me just pass by that and just say this. If, for example, if my father put me on his power of attorney, or not power of attorney, but on the, what I'm trying to say,
Maybe the will?
the will, thank you, the will.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if I decided not to participate in that, because, I just, didn't want to get involved, I just wanted to take care of my dad and make sure he's taken care of and stuff, and everything goes properly. If I decide not to do that, and he owned property, and I'm on the wheel, and I decide not to participate in that, can tax collectors, and then he owes some taxes from his home, can the tax collectors come after me that I was on the wheel as being one of his, relatives on the wheel, but I didn't have anything to do with his home, anything like that. He did. I just took care of him the best I could, but I decided not to get involved and let that go to my younger siblings and stuff like that. I'd be receiving calls every once in a while from someone saying, "We understand that you owe some back taxes and stuff like that." I said, "Wait a minute. I didn't own the house. I was just watching out for my dad, but I was on the wheel. So am I legally obligated to cover my father's tax burden?"
So that is an excellent question. But this is one where I would say, in order for me to respond to that, I'd have to know a little more information, and it would be giving legal advice, which I'm not allowed to do over the air. However,
Of course.
what I would like to do is give you the phone number that you can call, and we certainly can offer a free 15-minute initial consult to address the questions that you're raising, and we'll do it that way. It'll maintain your privacy, and it'll protect us from any ethical conflicts or so forth. So whenever you're ready, I'll go ahead and repeat the phone number that you can call and have an opportunity to talk to us about that in detail.
I appreciate that, and thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
And again, could you give me your name again? Excuse me for being old.
Oh, no. Attorney Plez. It's just like please, but there's no E on the end.
Plez, I got you.
Plez, yes. So think of it as please, but just drop the E and then you got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And the phone number?
The phone number is 414-247-9570. That is 414-247-9570.
And thank you so very much for your show today. And I appreciate the information, Attorney Press.
Thank you for calling.
You have a good day, dear.
You too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, caller, thank you for holding. Please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking my call. Assalamu alaikum to you, sister, and thank you for taking my call again. And you were speaking about the power of attorney, and I did speak to you about this previously. And when you were speaking about the durable power of attorney, and as the ladies who spoke previously when they were speaking about the springing power of attorney, and I'm just giving I guess you would call it a testimony, because I'm attesting to the fact that before my mom passed, she had designated or assigned me that role to make sure that when she did become completely incapacitated, that durable power of attorney would be the best route to go, so that there would not be conflict that could arise from an outside person, or having the government make the decision in a situation that is so very, very important concerning a loved one. So all I'm doing is just adding to what you all were speaking about. And the major difference is that with a durable power of attorney, the person that you assign or designate actually is like They are like you. They don't have to go through a third party to utilize the power of attorney, as opposed to if they were having a springing type of thing. I think that would lead to a lot of confusion and conflict within the family, and and just cause a lot of problems. So from what I've experienced, I know for sure that the durable power of attorney, that route is the best and most safest. And as it states, durable is the most lasting one, the most powerful one. So yeah, just adding to your conversation.
And I appreciate it so much. I remember when you called before too.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
thank you for your support. I appreciate your listening, and you always hone right in on the issues. You understand exactly what we're saying. And that's the type of testimony, if you will, that underscores the importance of what we're talking about. And I'm so glad that your mom had the presence of mind and the foresight to have those documents in place, because as hard as it is, it's already difficult enough to lose a parent and go through what you went through in that situation. So the fact that she had the paperwork in place so that you could just take charge of things and do what you knew was best and what you knew was right for her, that's very important, that it happened in that way. So thank you so much for those comments and that testimony. Okay, so it looks like there's another caller. Oh, missed them. Okay. Yep. Sorry about that, caller. I was just completing a thought, and I saw the line flashing, but just didn't get to it fast enough. So maybe they'll call back if they really want to, share some information. The number here is 414-444-5250. That is 414-444-5250. If you have something to add to the conversation that we're having this morning about the importance of having a power of attorney. Okay, so I've talked about different types of power of attorney for finances, real estate, and those sorts of things. I want to shift gears a little bit now and talk about the power of attorney for healthcare. The power of attorney for healthcare can be within the same document, but it's usually its own separate document. That's typically the way that I've seen it. The power of attorney for healthcare allows someone to make medical decisions on your behalf if you are unable to speak for yourself. What are the pros of having a healthcare power of attorney? If you have a terminal illness, this is a document that you might want or need to have on file. If you suffer from a mental condition that makes or will make decision making a difficult task for you, you may want to have this document on file. If you are older, and I almost hesitate to say that because I have one. I don't think I'm older, not yet, but yeah, it just depends. But maybe it's not even good to say if you're older, because that's a relative term, right? If you're 20, you think 30 is older. If you're 30, you think 40 is older. It's just an important document to have on file, because we just never know. If you have dependents or other relatives who you do not want to make decisions on your behalf, so get out ahead of it and pick the person that you want to be your healthcare agent. Sometimes, how do I want to say this? There are people in the family who will make decisions based on emotion. And then there are people in the family that will make decisions that are just more based on reason. And for my own personal perspective and my own personal preference with respect to a person that I would choose to be my healthcare agent, my healthcare power of attorney, I don't want the overly emotional relative who loves me and won't want to let me go no matter what. I want the practical, level-headed person who is just going to be about executing my wishes without interjecting unnecessary emotion, that's the person that I would want to choose. That's just me personally. I'm just saying what my personal thoughts are. Okay, there is a caller on hold. Caller, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know, are you going to be repeating this?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me cut in for just a second, because the producer is asking me to tell you. Would you mind turning down your radio? It looks like we're getting feedback, and it makes it hard to understand your question.
Okay, this is what it is. I'm at home, and I had scheduled for somebody else to do some things, so I couldn't get the whole hour that you're going to be there so far. And I heard you when you were on first, but I would like to know, are you going to be coming back on with this same information?
Oh, yes. I appreciate that question. So, two things. Yes, what I do is I do repeat some of the information that we share with the shows, because people like you, and I appreciate your call and I appreciate your question, do call and ask me, "Hey, will you go over that again? I wasn't able to hear it, or I was driving, so I couldn't write it down," and all of these different sorts of things. So the answer
Right.
to that is yes. However, I would like to also just let you know that the shows are available on YouTube. I don't know if you have access to YouTube.
No, I don't. No.
Okay.
My daughter had that, but I'm 80 some years old, so I don't know all about that right now. And
Okay.
She got COVID and passed, so I don't know that much about her.
Okay. Well, I just love that you called, and with what you said, but that tells me a lot in terms of what we need to do in order to make sure that everyone gets the message. So I certainly do make a point of repeating the shows. So thank you so much
Okay.
for that call, and we'll be back on this topic again.
Okay, when will you be on next? I mean, is there a date or not?
Sure. The Money Talks show is on every Thursday at between 11 a.m. to noon.
Okay, 11 on Thursdays. Okay,
Yes.
all right then.
Okay.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you so much
Mhm.
for calling in. I appreciate your call. Have a good rest of your
Okay.
day.
You too.
Okay, so we were talking about healthcare powers of attorney and some of the pros to that, and I was just giving my personal opinion about some of the criteria that I would consider before I made someone in charge of my healthcare. Some of the negatives of having a power of attorney for healthcare: you're trying to plan for a future that always comes, but there's a risk of unforeseen events. You don't necessarily know what the future is going to look like. You're planning for it as best you can with these documents, but you don't necessarily know what may or may not happen. So, for instance, a person might develop a new health condition. Maybe there's different treatment that might be available. You may even just have a falling out with the person that you nominated for your health care. And you may have designated someone, and you don't want them to have that power any longer. So then you have to be diligent and make sure that you keep those documents current as possible. The phone's just ringing off the hook today, but I guess that was, I don't know, like, okay, all right, because every time I look at it, it's lighting up. Another challenge with respect to all of this is the emotional toll that it can take on a person to have to plan for healthcare, especially if we're talking about someone who maybe has a terminal illness, coming to terms with those sort of things, and still having the presence of mind to try to plan things to ease the burden, if you can, on some of your loved ones. I just can't even begin to imagine, but I do want to at least acknowledge that even though I'm kind of speaking about these things very systematically, that I understand that it's a human conversation that we're having, and these are difficult topics and emotional topics that can take a toll on an individual and the family when you are faced with having to make these types of decisions. It is a stark reminder of our own mortality. Um, but it does drive home the fact that you will not always be as healthy or mentally aware as you are today. People can struggle with this reality, and it can cause procrastination. But it's only harder to do if you are, in fact, unwell. So I do like to try to encourage people as much as possible to put these types of documents in place, if possible, while you are able bodied with a clear mind, in order to get these things handled. Um, I would like to shift gears now and talk about some of the top mistakes to avoid when doing a power of attorney, whether it's for business, finances, or whether it's for healthcare. The number one thing that I would like to point out as a mistake to avoid is failing to create these documents, right? That's the biggest mistake you can make, is to do nothing. Um, I hope that even with some of the calls that we received today, particularly the testimony calls, that people will come to realize just how important these documents are. Sometimes people will have the mindset that all I need is a will. But when I started off the show, I said, well, I don't know about you guys, but for me, power of attorney is at least equally important, if not more so, because you're talking about what's going to happen to me and my stuff while I'm still here versus when I'm gone. So I'm being queued up here to take a break, and I will be back in just a short time to talk a little bit more about the mistakes you would like to avoid when planning power of attorney. Thanks for listening. It's Money Talks with Attorney Coral. November Attorney Coral. Before we went to the break, I was talking about mistakes to avoid. I have a long list, so I'll come back and talk about the ones that I know I won't have time to get to this morning. But let me pick up where I left off. The number one mistake I said was failing to plan, failing to have a power of attorney, failing to do your estate planning documents. That's the biggest mistake that we can make. But that's why we're here today, to educate people about the importance of consulting a professional and getting the assistance that you need to put these documents in place. No one likes to even think about losing the ability to manage your own affairs, but life is real, right? It's reality. So we need to give some diligent thought to creating these documents and keeping them safe, so that if anything were to happen, everything is spelled out in terms of how you would have wanted things to go. Consequences of not having these documents in place. Well, what if you need long-term care? What if someone has a heart attack? What if someone is unconscious? What if someone is incapacitated for a long period of time and then the court has to take over? And it's like what Kelly and Angelina were saying when they called in. This is where guardianships come into effect, and the court appoints someone to be your voice for you. Wouldn't you rather be the person who decides who your voice is going to be? And if the court appoints an attorney to have guardianship over you, well, then you're looking at the costs that are involved with that. That becomes costly. So failing to plan, I know that's a saying. I don't know who said that, Jermaine. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I don't know. I can't claim that, but it's appropriate in this circumstance. Second thing, appointing the wrong person. You need to appoint a person who will reflect your wishes, someone you can rely on. They need to be your voice if you're not able to speak for yourself. During an earlier show, I talked at length about Wendy Williams as an example of this. She had put her young son in charge of her guardianship, and he's a young college kid who was basically spending through the money for parties at his dorm, and as I understand, and it's been a couple years and he's more mature now, and I read something recently where they're considering assigning that responsibility back to him. But the court had to take it away at one point because he wasn't handling it as a mature adult, because he wasn't a mature adult. Next point is that a mistake is not understanding that giving someone this responsibility, this is a job. It is not an honor. It is a job. They have legal responsibilities, fiduciary obligations and duties to you once you appoint them or once you nominate them in this role. They need to do what you would want, not what they would want. And it's important that you choose that mature, responsible person who will understand these points. So there's more on that, and I'll save it for another show, because I did want to get back to you before we go with a couple of more reminders. I talked about Columbia Savings and Loan Association, and we are open for business and ready to consider you for a mortgage loan. Please call the bank and schedule an appointment to meet with our loan officer at 414-374-0486. That is 414-374-0486. Call Columbia Savings and Loan. And if you are interested in a mortgage, if you think you might not be ready till next year, call us anyway so we can help get you ready. Please call Columbia for your mortgage loan needs. Last but certainly not least, I would like to just remind everyone about the Halyard Park Association Foundation Beachy O. Brooks Statue Project. I talked about it at the top of the show. The Halyard Park Association Foundation is working on having a life-size bronze statue of Beachy O. Brooks placed on a custom base along with 2 bronze plaques, 1 plaque stating the history of Halyard Park subdivision and Beachy O. Brooks as the developer and builder, and the 2nd plaque listing the major donors. The HPAF foresees this statute being placed at the Halyard Park subdivision in the Gaines Triangle on North 6th Street and West Lloyd Streets in Milwaukee. Mail your donations to the Halyard Park Association Foundation at 2017 North Dr. William Finlayson Street. That's Milwaukee 53212, or call 414-916-2048 to support this endeavor. Thank you so much for listening. This was Money Talks with Attorney Coral. We'll be back next week with another interesting topic on estate planning. Have a wonderful week.
AM 106.5